Hello and welcome back. I'm Arjun Vishwanathan, and I'm going to be today in a conversation and a panel discussion that's very aptly titled Global Directions. And I'm going to be in conversation with very eminent IT leaders from across the world to discuss matters on how technology can be brought to bear on business strategy to deliver hypercompetitiveness, innovation, and an acceleration of business outcomes. Without further ado, please put your hands together to welcome, in no specific order, Chia Hock Lai, co-founder, Global FinTech Institute. Chia, welcome. Delighted that you could join us.
Hi, Arjun. Nice to be here. Thanks.
Lovely. Linoy Kidd, CIO for HSBC MENA. Linoy, welcome. Deeply privileged. Thank you.
Thank you. It's MSS CIO for MENA in HSBC. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Arivivel Ramu, Group CTO for the Tonic Digital Bank. Welcome, Arivivel. Delighted.
Thank you, Arjun and team. I'm privileged to be here.
Thank you. Linoy, with your permission, if I could come to you. The last 2 years have been fairly tough and difficult ones in a very compelling fashion of sorts. Therefore, if you were to look at the learnings and the experiences of 2020 and 2021, how do you think in 2022, industry globally is poised to radically redefine the use of technology in business transformation? And your perspective on that, please.
I think due to the pandemic, actually, we've seen great advancement in technology, in the way that we use technology, in the way that the business uses technology. And I feel like in many areas, we're now a full partner with the business to enable the growth in the business area. So I think because of the issues that we had due to the pandemic, that people had to work from home, we had to be extremely agile, very quick on our feet, and we had to change our approach to the way that we work. And therefore, actually, what we've illustrated is a number of things. The first one is that we can be agile and that we can deliver in a very fast pace. We had to ensure that all of our workers within MENA could work from home, which was a huge feat. We'd never done that before, and effectively ensure that the business ran, and that they could still they could still run adequately, and that was done. So I think that it's actually paved the way to illustrate what technology can do and how technology is an enabler. And I think that that's very important for the industry and everyone in the industry. And I think it's it's such an important place to be right now, because we had that illustration of what we could do. It's paved the way for 2022, 2023. And in fact, that we can put a huge strategy in place that can effectively take us to the next level using the bedrock of what we did in 2020 and 2021. I'll leave it to the other panelists to continue.
Absolutely, and that's fairly powerfully articulated, because Chia, I bring the same question to you, which is that in a sense of the matter, today technology is central to leaders who envision and want to make real business strategy. How do you see the convergence of technology and business strategy helping businesses modernize and transform?
So, not wanting to sound cliche, COVID-19 has brought forward the adoption of all things digital by at least 3 to 4 years. So obviously, digitalization becomes even far more important. So now I think business strategy and digitalization become very much intertwined, and we see increased adoption by end users across all age groups. No longer digital is being adopted by the millennials or the Gen Zs. Even old people are forced to use it, and because of the sustained period of the pandemic, it became habitual. Similarly, we see that happening to business of all sizes, especially the MSMEs. So we are seeing in countries like Indonesia, whereby there are more than 50 million MSMEs. they are forced to accept digital payments, the ability to deliver food and accept orders online. So I think this business strategy and technology strategy becomes very, very important. And I think one thing that is lacking is that a lot of the board representation do not have sufficient number of people who are digitally savvy enough to understand the implications of the emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, cloud computing, IoT, or even 5G. Yeah, so I think this is something that we have to seriously think about again. Yeah.
No, that's actually true, because it's also interesting. Arivivel, I come to you. The whole concept of, do you feel increasingly that the pandemic, perhaps in a very perverse manner, has become a natural catalyst with the enablement of technology for organizations to be able to think more digitally native today and take more digitally native approaches?
Yes, Arjun, absolutely right. So the pandemic pushed all the boundaries. The 10 years
Indeed.
transformation happened in just 2 years. If you look at closely 2020 and 2021, digitalization is unavoidable. The most pressurizable job is the CIOs and CTOs and the chief people officer. Finding the right talent, putting the right technology, because the virtual touch point become primary and mainstream.
Indeed.
Because of virtual touch point becoming a mainstream and bringing remote workforce enablement, another challenge is to driven cybersecurity.
Indeed.
Because of that, the smart fraud capability need to be enabled. And this all need to be in a agile and quick go to market. If you look at all this angle, now all this enabled by not physical touch point or processes alone. You need modern technology to be adapted to support this 5 angle which I talked about it. Which
No,
can
that's
be artificial
absolutely
intelligence
true.
and machine learning or data lake, automation, multi-cloud, because all this are fuel to this engine.
Yeah, indeed.
Run fast.
No, that's actually true, because Linoy, isn't it interesting? And do you see this happening, which is that given the wide appreciation and acknowledgement of technology within the lines of business, within different functions within an organization, the role of a CIO stands fairly transformed today, because suddenly you're at the center of ensuring that you not only meet business outcomes, but that you also drive sustainable innovation, yet do all of this in a fiscally prudent manner.
Yeah, I think the role of the CIO is adapting and changing to our times, and I do see it as an evolutionary step along the way, along the journey. But like you say, it's a fine balance between looking forward at our strategy, looking across what we can digitalize, how we can monopolize on our new infrastructure, whether we go in-house or build, what's fit for purpose and where our business is going in terms of growth, and ensuring that all of that, like you say, is fit for purpose and within budget. And also don't forget that there's very little risk appetite for
Indeed.
any issues with anything to do with risk. And production is always key as well, because we really need to have 100% uptime. So the CIO's role is extremely pivotal and encompasses all of those elements. And like I say, it's very, very important to align the IT strategy with the business strategy to ensure that where the business wants to go is where we grow our infrastructure and ensure that we don't have any hotspots on our infrastructure, which is exactly what we did during the pandemic to ensure that we had the agility to move forward as well as the communication to move forward. So, you know, we didn't have Zoom in the organization until we had the pandemic, and then it became one of the most important tools to us going forward. So, and like side, you know, Microsoft Teams became very important to us as well, so that we could touch base with our teams who were working remotely. So coupling that all together, it's very, very important that, you know, it's a very pivotal role in the organization.
It's actually fascinating that you mentioned this, because Chia, I bring this to you. If 2020 clearly was the year of disruption and 2021 was the year of transition, many industry analysts are calling 2022 the year of acceleration. In that sense, Chia, how, according to you, should the role of the CIO or the IT leader evolve to do exactly what Lena was talking about: balanced strategy, deliver outcomes, sustained acceleration of innovation, yet be fiscally prudent?
I think this is where a lot of CIOs now have to look beyond their traditional comfort zones and look at innovation as a new competitive advantage, especially in the financial institutions. The pandemic has proved that having a large network of branches is no longer an advantage, but very often is a liability, nor is the range of products that you have. And very often managing this shift towards the more innovation-driven culture is essential. And we heard about the 3 C's of managing digital transformation. While it's very important that you have the cash, but that cash has to be allocated to activities to keep the lights on one hand, while on the other hand, keep on innovating. So you need to get the C-suite support for it. But more importantly, how do you change the culture of a big institution, which tend to be more conservative? So this is where a two-speed innovation approach has to be adopted. Nothing big bang, because in financial institutions, you really can't afford to have major downtime. So this is where effective IT strategy like multi-cloud becomes important. The implementation of edge computing, fog computing, and cloud computing all together in a very efficient way becomes very important for survival in the future.
That's interesting, because Arivivel, I ask you the same question. And you've seen the last 2 years yourself. How has your role changed, and perhaps dramatically, over the last 2 years to how it stands today and how it looks to be for tomorrow?
Yeah. Thank you, Arjun. Being a new bank, I started my journey when the pandemic started. Okay, which means the whole team in 3 different countries set up during the pandemic, which means the whole onboarding of the team is in pandemic, which means is a huge learning with the restricted boundaries, you know, country boundaries. We all learn how to onboard someone and train them virtually, you know, connect IT workforce. That's a huge learning. Second, how to put this team in a secure workspace when you put work from home. This is the biggest challenge we learned as an IT leader. Third, when we start building the whole 80+ technologies wired up in less than 10 months with the remote workforce, building the virtual team building, virtual trainings, getting everything virtual. Launched a bank, first new bank in Philippines, 2020 November, within 11 months. And it's a mid of crisis, you know, with a complete virtual part. Where we start learning is part of the pandemic launch, how to bring people into virtually. That means the traditional marketing cannot go into work. So you need to find a marketing take which is completely digital supportive. So another huge learning, in the beginning of 2021, we start learning how to acquire the customer, especially seamless onboarding through digital marketing, and start providing seamless servicing. Trust me, creating a trust was a big challenge to us in 2021 beginning to bring them. So we start learning that, putting the right technology and putting the artificial intelligence and machine learning. When you say AML, I start using for doing the human liveliness detection when you are working remotely, trying to onboard from your home. And if you look at even a smart fraud detection, we use biometric, whether you are a real human or not. Coming to lending, we try to build alternate scoring because none of the country, Brew, can give you a data which you want. So you need to build alternate credit scoring based on social behavior, on biometric and your mobile devices and telco and your internet and your social media footprint. This all, it's a huge learning in 2021. Where I'm seeing 2022 is, which rightly both of our colleagues are explained about, acceleration with the sustainability. Where I'm building right now is more operational automation with multi-cloud strategy, where cost optimization is one key when you are scaling, when you're running everything in cloud.
Indeed.
Number two is the automation. The number of, we cannot afford to run 10,000 people in a big building like a similar enterprise organization. We need to be now onboard, offboard everybody, train them in, even the call center trained virtually. And that's a big thing. So we need to keep the lean team, especially my operational team. So the automation is the second strategy. The third one is wise decision. The wise decision, the data is a key. So predictive analytics using data lake, not talking about data warehouse, how you can predict based on the customer behavior, transaction behavior, your lending behavior, your onboarding behavior, funnel it and try to understand, are we tapping the right customer through digital marketing, creating a proper funnel. This is all the completely new tech, and we just started, and that's what we are seeing. 2022 is more on maximizing data lake, maximizing artificial intelligence, machine learning, and maximizing best of cloud capability.
No, absolutely. I think these are very pivotal, because that's exactly what I want to bring to you, Linoy, is that quite a lot of what we've spoken about in the last 15, 17 minutes has been to do around scale, building agility, modernization. In that sense, Linoy, do you feel that central to all of this and central to crafting modernization of the enterprise, data is obviously central to it, and therefore would you in your prescriptive guidance advise that creating a data management architecture is central to a CIO's ability to achieve the kind of superior business outcomes that they're looking at?
I think it's very important to have a single point where the data, where you can obtain the data, because the more complex your environment network, your infrastructure is, the more it's going to cost you to run. And this simplifying that will allow you to monopolize on the simplification and therefore the cost reduction. And I think data is absolutely key to that. Everybody wants to know where they can have their data and how to cut and slice the data. So it's very important to have data in a very systematic format so that it's readable across the group. And so data is very important, and at basically the source of the strategy. Without having your data in a place that's readable, it's very hard to manage the estate. And so that's why we've seen over time that data has become increasingly more important. and especially with the increase of cloud as well, and obviously algorithmic trading, data is very, very important. So yes, in answer to your question, yes, it's extremely important. It's pivotal to the strategy, and we really need to have a really good data strategy. Without it, it becomes extremely expensive to run.
Indeed, indeed, that's true. Because Chia, if I may come to you, after having assimilated the insights from all your articulations, my question to you is one that is uh, in reference to guidance that you could give a new generation of IT leaders and CIOs and chief technology and digital officers, which is that technology by itself has a promises to do enormous things for us. But the use of technology often is misguided because of a tendency to want to throw technology at everything. How, in your experience, would you advise organized IT leaders and CIOs to efficiently and judiciously use technology? And what is your guidance to them on how to approach the whole concept of crafting business strategies, outcomes, and achieving them?
I think nowadays it's almost impossible to know the perfect answer right from the start.
Indeed.
So just throwing, the latest technology to problems does not solve everything. So it's very important to adopt an agile approach to do a very grassroots way to get input, not only from your end users, but from your IT teams and also from external stakeholders. And then from there, try not to do big bang approach, really start small projects. And very often you might even want to crowdsource your solutions from your vendors or even from other parties. That will be a more sensible way to see what are the best technology to use and how does that contribute to value enhancing activities to the organization. So I think the usual toolkits that they can use, for example, organizing hackathons are one way, and also very importantly, involve the senior management as business sponsors that will get buy-in from them, so that then they will remove any roadblocks that you have during the implementation. And one last but not least, really the whole change management process, get buy-ins from the end users, because even if you can create the best technology, if no one is using it right, you will not be able to realize the benefits from implementing it, and that will result in very low or even negative ROI from that investment.
No, that's actually interesting because Arivivel, I ask you the same question. You yourself mentioned the fact that you're digitally born, the organization. In that sense, does there exist a tendency to want to look at technology for pretty much every business opportunity or business challenge? Or does the leadership, which obviously includes you, make a clear distinction between where technology can be put to use for its best purpose rather than just throw technology at everything?
Arjun, you put the very complex question. This is exactly both places today. Most of us in the enterprise, we make mistake because some vendor come and throw the technology. Hey, you want to buy this? We sell A, B, C. I took it a little different. One is when I talked about cost reduction, I talked about cost efficiency. Number one, when I'm bringing the technology part of the strategy, for example, when I chat about chatbot, we create a strategy such a way linked to the solving real problem. For example, I want to automate the call center traffic reduction by 30% through conversational AI, through in-app chat. Then it will very specific. Instead of selling data lake, I'm going to build modern data lake. I used to sell to my board. I'm building credit MIS, which help you to provide a lending onboarding funnel in a daily basis, hourly basis. All you need to see is click of button. You can see at the moment what is happening.
Indeed.
This kind of thing. When you talk about AI in a big way, people talk about, yeah, I'm going to bring AI. I talked about little different. Hey, yes, we are going to do face detection for your fraud. That's how we convince risk. We convince marketing, no, your customer is don't need to enter all the personal details and document detail. One click of taking a picture of the ID proof, we pre-populate using OCR technology. For example,
Indeed.
I'm talking about vision AI and document AI capability. If I say directly to the board, no. If I put directly to my strategy deck, it's not going to sell.
Yeah,
And of course, this linked to the cost aspect, because every technology we are talking about in cloud, two areas. One is not matured in terms of implementation, because every SI companies today exploring the transformation. They are also learning, going through it. So we need to be, as rightly mentioned by Chair, start something small. We call it as MVP, minimum viable product, and which is few use cases which can be implementable between anything from 1 to 3 months. We implement that capability, and then we tune it, because we learn from that capability what are the mistakes we did, how the customer is using it. Then we start scaling it. This is what last 2 years we are building.
That's interesting, because I'd like to take that to you, Lino. The same question. How should CIOs, IT leaders resist the urge to pretty much look at technology for every opportunity or challenge that presents itself? And what is your guidance to a new generation of IT folks on how to avoid those mistakes?
It's a very, very interesting question. And I think a lot of it is down to how long you've been in the industry and how long you've seen it, experienced it, you've done it, it's not worked, and it's all around the DevOps agile journey of try, fail fast, move on, try, fail fast, move on. And I do believe that, like I said, the most important thing for a CIO is to ensure that whatever they do is in line with the business, and whatever the business wants to do, is IT going to complement it and be a conduit? Yes, no. If no, don't do it. If yes, then do it. And I think one of the biggest things that we've seen over time, and I think moving from a waterfall approach to an agile approach has really helped us in this, is that we have those conversations with our product owners. They are linked with the business. They have a direct correlation with the business and the strategy, and they can help put that forward. And therefore, what that means is you don't ever do a project, deliver it, and the business say, oh no, that's not what I wanted. Because as part of the agile methodology, that would never happen, because you pick it up because it's iterative steps. And therefore, my advice would be to always chunk things down to small bite sizes and do it. If it doesn't work, fail fast, move on. But have those conversations with the business and ensure that what you are doing for technology is going to align, and therefore you will grow the business together. If you're not going to grow the business together, don't do it. It's not the answer.
No, I couldn't agree more. That's actually fantastic and fascinating listening to each of you, but I do have a view on the clock, and I know you've got schedules ahead. But like any moderator, I continue to be slightly greedy. I still am going to squeeze in one question, which is to understand the person behind the technology. Chia, the last 2 years, fairly challenging for people across the globe. It's been sometimes very traumatic. In all of this, however, if you were to boil the last 20 odd months down, one specific learning that you've got personally or professionally that's going to stick with you for a long, long time?
I think resiliency.
Okay.
Yeah, because like COVID really upended many things, both professional and personal life. So I think the ability to withstand that, being able to pivot, being able to adapt quickly, and then deliver value. Because ultimately, you need to deliver value despite all the circumstances. It's very important. And that boils down to being able to be very resilient and withstand all the pressures. Yeah, I think resiliency is very important to me.
Very, very interesting. Aravivel, same question to you. One learning, personal, professional, it could be anything that's going to stick with you for a long, long time to come.
Thanks, Arjun. So I become modern banker. I hear so many no's when I'm executing multiple programs with 20 different banks in my experience. A lot of no's. So the no's is nothing but what customer wants, bankers don't want. So what I learned, I want to set up an organization which is customer centric. That's how Tonic born in Singapore. So it's purely a customer centric, start from customer, end with customer. And everything you do in a hyper personalized experience, and the remaining all is secondary. Are we giving what he wants? Or are we trying to sell what we have? So that's the biggest learning. Every question from technology to process to people I ask, is the customer wants? Is the process is customer centric? Is this customer going to happy? So everything, this is where that's one part. Of course, the second one, I would say agility. So I strongly believer of the transformation, the critical tension comes only in agility. You cannot do it in 2 years things. You need something tomorrow means it's tomorrow.
Absolutely.
How quickly you can, which our Line talks about, fail first. Try out, and if that works, scale it. If not, change. That's
very, very powerfully articulated. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And indeed, then Linoy, in conclusion, I come to you. One personal or professional learning that's going to stay with you for a long time, thanks to the pandemic and the disruption that happened.
I think for me, I had to kind of relearn what a leader was, at the fundamental level, because I'm always around, be in the office, be present, always be the one leading from the front, and being present is very important to me. I'm a big extrovert. I love talking to people. I love my team. I speak to people all over the world, blah, 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 and I really, really like that interpersonal connection. So I had to learn, and I had to relearn what it means to be, a leader, and how to lead via this virtual world. And I think that one of the learnings that I took away from that is have a think about what you want your leader to do for you on the virtual scale. And everybody wants to feel appreciated. Everyone wants to go to work and feel appreciated, and to know that they turned up, they came, and that their work is valuable and they're appreciated for it. And I think we did some very, very small things during the pandemic that really helped not only me but also the teams wide. So every day we would have a touch point with the team to ensure that they knew that they could come to the leaders at any time. We'd also do really silly stuff, like on a Friday afternoon we'd have like virtual coffee or virtual pub, and sometimes we'd challenge each other. So I got my team to each challenge each other, and some people were doing crazy things like, I want you to sing, I want you to dance, I want you to do 100 press-ups on the screen, and then you get to learn new stuff about your team that you would never have learned if the pandemic was never there. So I think it was very, very interesting, and it changed the ethos. I think it brought a lot of people and a lot of teams and a lot of leaders closer to their team. So that would be my takeaway. And also, when we went back to the office, I stopped doing that. And I think people would appreciate if I did more of it now that I'm in the office. So that's what I'm taking away for 2022.
Fantastic. But this has been a truly enriching and fascinating conversation. Linoy, Chia, Aravivel, thank you so very much. I stand much the better for having been in dialogue with you. Very, very grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for the audience, that's all from us now. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment.